On this episode of Friday Night Lights, Central Florida, a former NFL running back has found a new home at a Central Florida high school. We'll tell you who the first-time head coach is and why the school's future is looking bright. We'll be interviewing 15-year NFL veteran Wayne Gandy, plus plenty of high school recruiting news and notes on this edition of Friday Night Lights, Central Florida.
Welcome into Friday Night Lights, Central Florida. Carson Engel, Allie Peak. We're at a unique time in the high school sports season. As we said, a lot to get to, Allie.
We have a lot to talk about today, and there's a lot of sports that are coming to an end, lots of state championships in the upcoming weeks.
And spring football gearing up. We've got some coach movement because of result and some new coaches in the area. Former NFL running back Ricky Waters now at Oak Ridge High School, over 10,000 yards in his NFL career. Never been a coach at any level, though, but has been around in some of the youth programs in Central Florida, and always great for a high school, of course, to get that guy with that NFL pedigree, that NFL experience.
Well, and Oak Ridge always goes for guys with NFL pedigree. Before this, they had Elijah Williams, who University of Florida product, then was in the NFL. And I can tell you what, though, Ricky Waters, what a hire. Kids are going to be excited to play ball for him.
Yeah, you can already hear that from a lot of the players on the Pioneers. Williams, of course, moving on to that assistant coaching job at Florida A&M.
Right.
But this will be a good opportunity for Waters, a guy that's obviously very vocal, that experience, and he'll get to sort of just be able to lend his hand, to the high school players at Oak Ridge.
Well, and Ricky has run camps in the Central Florida area for many, many years. So even though he's never been a head coach at the high school level, he's definitely done his fair share of high school coaching.
We've also got a coaching move closer to us here at Polk County. Jason Butler being named the head coach at Bartow High School. He was the defensive coordinator for the last 7 seasons with Lakeland. Obviously some great experience there, part of 3 state championship coaching staffs.
Well, Coach Castle is one of the best guys in the business to learn under, and this is a huge hire as well, especially with that USF tie. He played there, and I think that maybe they're going to work on a little recruiting angle there as well. And Bartow has not been winning a lot lately, so I know that they are looking forward to this welcome change.
Right, Butler gets the opportunity to kind of retransition the program, 3 straight losing seasons in a row. It's always good, too, when you come home. Of course, he played at Bartow, a 97 graduate, and I think that adds a good perspective to be able to be that guy that comes back home and knows the area so well.
Well, they say that to get where you need to go, you have to know where you've been. And so that's why it is really important. And a lot of high schools do tend to get alumni. It's easier to get people excited. It's easier to get kids motivated. They connect more with the school because they really know the history.
Well, another a coach, a legendary coach that is, former coach Bill Minahan. Charity luncheon in Tampa today, actually, and a guy that's very near and dear to your heart. It's his 5th annual charity luncheon for organ replacement and also recovery from organ replacements.
Yes, Coach Bill Minahan is a Hillsborough County legend. He did have a transplant 27 years ago. He was my dad's head coach at Jesuit more years ago than my dad would care for me to mention, I am sure. But the cool thing about Coach Minahan is that every major high school football coach in Hillsborough County has come from his coaching tree. When you look at the coaches at Plant, Armwood, Jefferson, Tampa Catholic, Jesuit, all of the major players, Berkeley, they're all guys that are disciples of Bill Minahan. He really has put Hillsborough County football on the map. He's a major reason why it's so successful.
Right. Of course, he coached at 3 different schools, Jesuit, Plant, and Jefferson. So that experience, he's basically the godfather of Tampa high school football and certainly the coaching ranks everywhere in the area.
He is the godfather. He still goes out to high school football games every single Friday night, and this is such a cool organization. He gets a lot of celebrities, and most of them are former players of his, to come out to donate, and it's going to be a very cool luncheon. I actually will be heading to it.
Of course, that luncheon already over, but if you want to donate, it's the LifeLink Legacy Fund, lifelinkfound.org.
I think you should too. It's a very worthy cause.
Well, we wanted to transition into some of the spring sports, of course, and district softball tournaments have been all week long. Several contenders from across the I-4 corridor for the state title in Vero Beach, May 8th through 11th. Some of the bigger classes, some of the better teams, of course, across the area. But these district tournaments this week, a lot of district title games tonight here in the area, and these teams will be off on the road to Vero Beach.
Have you ever gone to the softball state
I
championships?
have not.
It is a really cool experience. You have to go. These parents are passionate. The kids are incredibly passionate. There is some fantastic softball played right here in the Central Florida area.
We've got a couple of 8A teams out of Orlando. In fact, Haggerty High School, #1 team in all of Florida in the state poll. Then you've got Timber Creek right behind them at #2 in the state 8A poll. And both of those teams have played each other. Haggerty won a tough game in the regular season, 2-1. Two top contenders for that 8A title.
How about Haggerty High School? This is a relatively new program. Their basketball team is fantastic. Their softball team is fantastic. They've had some great recruits come out for football. They need to put together more of a winning season, but I think that they'll get there. They're building a heck of a program.
And Haggerty 23-1, their softball girls on the season, so they've really rolled through. 7A also boasting a lot of strong contenders out of the area. You've got Kissimmee Osceola, which is #2 in the poll, and then you've got two schools out of Polk County. They're at 3 and 4 in Lake Region and Bartow. Both of those schools squaring off tonight in their district title game.
You know, 7A is a really tough classification for softball. Some of the very best teams in the entire state, not just 7A, come from the Central Florida area, but 7A particularly is really strong.
Yeah, that's 7A7 district title tonight at 7 o'clock between Lake Region and Bartow at Lake Region High School. Should be a great one there. And then even in 2A, you've got a contender out of the area in St. Petersburg, Canterbury High School. They play a lot of, we see some of these powerhouse small school programs play some of the higher classification schools in order to gain that experience, and Canterbury's done that playing Haggerty and others throughout the season.
Right, and Canterbury does that across the board for all of their sports, which is one of the things that sets them apart from some of the other smaller private schools in the area. You're definitely not getting a cakewalk schedule, so they should come in battle-tested and ready to roll.
Absolutely. Those state finals just down the road here, coming up next month in May, 8th through 11th. In Vero Beach. So it should be a great time and a great road for those girls as they get into regional play next week and even on to state play. Baseball right behind them, of course, the #1 team in our area, one of the top teams in the country, Jesuit baseball, losing last weekend 2-1 to Seminole, undefeated and dropping their first game of the year.
You know, it is incredibly, incredibly hard to go undefeated in high school baseball.
Yeah, and losing to Seminole there in 10 innings, an extra inning game. You talk about how difficult it is to go undefeated, really in any high school sport.
Right.
We see it more frequently in football because of just the shortened season. It's not as many
Right.
games. But, when you get into basketball and into baseball, there are teams almost every year that try to make a run at it. And most often or not, you just slip up one way or another, of course, across the season.
It's easier to go 10-0 than it is to go 25-0. But if I can tell you something about Jesuit High School and Richie Warren, their head coach, they would rather lose now in an overtime game in the regular season and be battle tested than they would go undefeated and not come home with the state title. And while Jesuit has gotten incredibly far year after year, those state titles have kind of eluded them the last couple of years. So maybe this is something that they need.
Yeah, there's no doubt that, all the hoopla, the national rankings, they don't care about any of that. They fell from 1 to 7 in the Max Preps rankings. No big deal for them because you're right. They want to be battle tested, even coming up here next week with their district tournament and then hopefully further on for them in the playoffs as well.
They're going to have a tough time with my alma mater, Tampa Catholic. It's their rival, and whether or not Tampa Catholic has won a single game in the season almost doesn't matter when it comes to this rivalry. It's part of what makes it so special because these two teams will always play each other hard.
Yeah, we're definitely going to preview district baseball next week. And playoffs and kind of what we did with softball, give you a rundown of who the best teams in the area might be to beat. Certainly when you look across some of the top teams in Tampa, I mean, there's just a slew of contenders that could make their way to Fort Myers, moving over from St. Lucie now, the state title and state tournament in Fort Myers here coming up at the end of May.
Well, we talked about this on the show last week. It is incredible the number of professional baseball players that come out of the Tampa Bay area and just the intensity of these programs. And I think it does have to do a lot with the AAU circuit that is run throughout Tampa and the Clearwater area. So there will be a lot of teams from the Tampa Bay area making it to states.
That's our news and notes for the week. Up next, a 15-year NFL veteran, Wayne Gandy, offensive lineman, holding his 20th annual camp in Haines City tomorrow all day long. We'll talk with Wayne Gandy next. This is Friday Night Lights, Central Florida.
We can get a player up here.
Oh, that's good stuff.
All right, perfect.
Prepare a
Wiley Ballard graphic.
Do you want me to start the stream?
Start the stream. Camera 3. Beautiful. We're coming in on 1.
For information on how your school can join the Play On School broadcast program, go to fhsaanetwork.com/SBP.
Back here on Friday Night Lights Central Florida, Carson Ingold and Allie Pekin. We're joined by a 15-year NFL veteran now helping the community here in the area in Polk County. The Wayne Gandy football camp coming up at Haines City Cookfield this Saturday. Thanks for joining us here on Friday Night Lights Central Florida.
Thank you for having me. It's been a long time since I've been to Lakeland. Kathleen High School, still have nightmares about it. So.
We had a long career, of course, Auburn and then in the NFL. I guess just give us a little bit of a background on what you're doing now. I know you're working in media a little bit and doing some different things.
And been doing a radio show called The Sports Jock Show for the last 2 years. You can go to thesportsjock.com, not to self-promote, but I have to. But it's been great getting into broadcasting. After playing for 15 years, I took a complete year off. Kind of got my head around what I wanted to do. Broadcasting was a great thing for me. Trying to get into the TV realm as well. But it's given me a platform for all the things that went on in that long career of the NFL.
Was it one of those things that when you were done with your playing time, you weren't sure what direction you wanted to head in, or did you feel prepared for life after football?
I'm still retiring. Even though this is my 4th year, I always tell people that I was that guy for so long, from 13 to 38. I was that guy. So it's a process. The thing I do allow is not so much pressure of needing to make a decision tomorrow. So it's been a nice transition, and I'm happy, and get to work on my tan a little more than I used to. But it's been great trying to get in new challenges is always great for someone that has that competitive nature.
Being in, so many different NFL markets across the course of a 15-year career, what are some of the advice that you have for high school athletes that are maybe going to that college level and then hopefully with pro aspirations in terms of just dealing with that, first as a collegiate athlete lifestyle and then as a professional athlete?
Enjoy your time. So many kids now, especially with how the media portrays them, you have the press conference and they put on the hat and you would have sworn that they had made it to the pro ranks, and they haven't. You just going to college. Now go be the best college player you can be. Don't think about pro. Let pro come. Try to really focus still on your education. That gets lost in the shuffle. We're more concerned about trying to pay the player than get him to get his education. But my advice would be just to be a great college player, a great college student, and everything else will come.
You mentioned pay the player, and so I'm going to have to bring it up. Auburn's been in some trouble recently, and they've got Really? The NCAA is looking into them now, and I don't really want to talk about that. I want to ask you, when you talk to kids at your camps or in the community, what do you tell them, and how do you advise them to steer clear of all of the people that are looking to get you to break the rules?
To stay focused on the end objective. So many things is momentary. I just want it for today. Well, I'm going to mess up today, which is going to mess up my next 3 or 4 years. With the Auburn scandal, I've been telling everybody what they need to do is put a fund for when you graduate. If you want to pay the players, come up with something that makes an allowance that if you graduate from here, we'll give you X amount of dollars. But do not give a 19-year-old, an 18-year-old money, because what are we going to do? We all went to college. You're going to burn it up, and you really need money when you transition from graduation back into the real world.
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize that if you're one of those free agents that get picked up, or even the very later rounds, it's not like there's a whole lot of money coming your way till you make that final roster. So an account like that might come in handy for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, NFL, 1,960 people a year, not a lot of people. We always call the call letters not for long,
right?
Which is the truth. And people like me stayed around a long time. So I kept a job, and I kept you from getting a job. So I would just wish that young people would focus more on going to college and being college students. The NBA is a little different. It's like one and done, but college still has that 3-year rule that you have to be there.
ESPN has named this offensive line class this year, Florida being the hotbed of the offensive line recruiting class. especially across the I-4 corridor. There's tons of really talented offensive line prospects this year. What were some of the things that were key in your development at that time that fostered your career into college and then into the pros?
Getting tougher as an offensive line, tougher-minded, understanding the criticism, and really just, especially for a high schooler, I thought it was punishment being an offensive lineman in high school until you get and you learn the importance of what the offensive line. As you grow in football, you really learn that you can kind of determine a team's success through his offensive line. You have a great offensive line, it makes other positions easier. And then you start taking the pride and you see the worth of being in that position.
It's definitely true that ball games are won and lost in the trenches. But I want to talk about your football camp you've got coming up, the 20th annual Wayne Gandy football camp and cheer camp as well, right? You've got cheerleaders there too. Tell us a little bit about how kids can sign up, get involved. What can they expect if they come out?
They should expect a fun time. It's free. I've been involved. It's 20 years that it's been going on. I've been in it for 15. It has been a joy of mine. I always wanted it to be free so kids could come with no reservation of any issue about registering. You come out 7 o'clock in the morning, Saturday, you register. Bring some cleats. That's
Cleats are key, right? We need the cleats.
Bring some cleats and have fun. We serve lunch at the end, and we have different pro players and college players that come back for instruction and just to pal around with. Because, in this area, it's not a lot of influx of pro athletes. A lot come out of the area, but a lot don't come back to celebrate and help out with the youth.
What makes it unique? I mean, obviously ages 5 through 15, it seems like with the football and the cheer aspect of it, you've got something for almost everyone, girls and boys and, everyone really.
Well, you have to add the women or they'll be picketing. No. But
that's why
it's a great experience. And actually, we have a great turnout for the cheerleaders. It's over 100 girls come out each year. But I guess the unique experience is that it's for fun. It's not the pressure that you're going to get slammed or competitive. A lot of camps turn into a competition and kids feel like, oh, I failed. This is just to try to learn something or as a pro, something you never would have known.
Awesome. Well, it's the 20th annual Wayne Gandy Football and Cheer Camp coming up at Haines City, Cook Field. Registration starting at 7 a.m. We appreciate your time and joining us here for a little bit.
Thank you for having me. I'm trying to adjust back to the heat. Coming out of Atlanta, it was like 45 degrees. Now it's like 90. And please tune in to my show every Monday, 10 to 1, The Sports Jock at thesportsjock.com.
Great stuff. Wayne Gandy, a former Auburn Tiger. Sure, he was recruited quite a bit back in the day. Coming up next segment, it's our Recruit Scoop of the Week. Plenty of news and notes to get to, including one guy that may be a little bit turned on now to the Florida Gators after saying that, he wasn't really interested in them just a week ago. That's coming up next here on Friday Night Lights, Central Florida.
Now ready for Parkview, number 21, Matt Olson.
Welcome back to Friday Night Lights, Central Florida. Carson Engel and Allie Peak. Always our third segment, the Recruit Scoop of the Week. And even here in spring, the recruiting notes just keep cycling down for really kids across all age groups and classes in high school football.
There is not a recruiting season anymore. It's really become a 365-day-a-year business, and these coaches work it that way now.
And we've seen that even with some late signees. 2013 kicker out of Leto, Amarado Courage, he signed a letter of commitment with Marshall, a little bit different than your normal signing day, your commitment, your letter of commitment and all that, because Courage doesn't have that, that scholarship yet. And we see this a lot in the recruitment of kickers, almost its own subdivision in terms of the recruiting business. But he's going to Marshall, and if he wins the starting kicker job in August, he'll be on full scholarship. Even if he does not win the starting kicking job, he'll be on a scholarship in January. So just kind of a way for schools to delay that whole process and keep their numbers right?
Well, scholarships are given to special teams players last. So that's punters, kickers, and long snappers. And it's just because they need to fill everywhere else first. And coaches don't always focus on special teams. But the head coach at Marshall is Doc Holliday. And I can tell you that special teams are big with him. He was a coach at the University of Florida, and his son, Cade, who is the assistant strength coach now, was a walk-on at Florida. So I definitely think that he fully understands what it means to have a walk-on on your team, and he definitely appreciates special teams.
One of the top prospects in the class of 2014 out of the Tampa Bay area, Artavis Scott. He was named to the ESPN 150 on Thursday, the number 9 wide receiver in that class, a guy that's getting a slew of offers, but actually UCF might be in the mix for the 4-star prospect. Could be really a huge recruiting boom for them if they'd be able to pull him in.
Well, Scott is a heck of a player out of Eastlake, and we've talked about UCF on this show before. Recruiting in your own backyard is the way to go. When you've got the talent that we have here in Central Florida, there really isn't any reason to go anywhere else. So if UCF could land him, that would be a huge coup.
Got tons of offers from all the major schools, but Scott has been very complimentary about UCF so far. He hasn't named any sort of finalists, any sort of strong list, so we'll just have to wait and see. But that exposure that comes with the ESPN 150 and that's also huge in this whole recruiting process as well.
Well, when you live in the Tampa Bay area, Orlando is just close enough that your parents can come and visit if there's an emergency, but far enough away that they have to call before they come. So that might be the perfect spot for him. Lots of family and friends can come and visit. And like we said, it would be a huge win for UCF.
A couple Orlando prospects getting offers from Dr. Phillips High School. Davin Pierce, the first one, a safety. He gets his second offer from West Virginia, the first one from Louisville. And of course, he has big shoes to fill on that star-studded Panther squad, replacing Florida Gators commit Marcel Harris in 2013.
Well, it's very interesting to watch how recruiting works, because if you have one stud on your team, the next year you have 10. And it's not that the team is any more talented than anybody else, but it's because the coaches have come down and noticed the talent that you have. So at Dr. Phillips, it's great to be a football player there because they've got the recruiters. They come in, they know that there's talent and they can find it there. So instead of just offering one kid, they're offering 5, 6 across the board.
Yeah, you look at all that exposure, and I was at Dr. Phillips signing day this year, when you've got guys like Harris, Matt Milano going to Boston College, Henderson Obas, Eric Harrell, even Alton Meeks to Iowa State, all guys Division I prospects. You have those guys that paved the way for you, and then they're looking at and coaches come out and they see some kids below them, and so they kind of pave the way for that next crop. And that's how these powerhouse programs build that reputation.
Absolutely.
Is because year after year they're able to build off of the classes of the past.
Well, Alton Meeks doesn't want to be the only person at Iowa State, so he's definitely hoping to get some Dr. Phillips Panthers up there.
Yeah, Roderick Proctor, in fact, a wide receiver, he picks up his second offer from the Cyclones, already receiving an offer from Arizona. This is a guy that was highly productive last year in his junior season with 10 touchdowns, over 700 yards receiving. So he was able to make that name with Meeks throwing to him. Now Meeks going to Iowa State, going to Ames to be a linebacker. Maybe he's able to be that extra recruiter. We see that a lot with former teammates and how they're able to pitch schools, and when kids go on unofficial and official visits, those former high school teammates are able to be their hosts and show them around.
Right. Well, this junior year spring is incredibly important for kids that want to play football at the next level, especially those guys that maybe aren't those top tier recruits, but are really good players and are just looking for offers. So this is going to be a really important time for a lot of these kids.
I don't know how you're going to feel about this next one, but Lakewood offensive lineman Isaiah Wood, he picks up his 21st offer from your Florida Gators. Now, what's unique about it is that Wynn last week said that he wasn't interested in going to Gainesville. Now he said he talked to Will Muschamp on an unofficial visit this weekend, and that, well, he realizes that Florida actually has a lot to offer there.
It's interesting that players aren't interested in schools that haven't yet offered them. Right. And then as soon as they do offer...
Is it motivation, maybe? Are they trying to put it out there trying to intimidate the schools into
I didn't want that offer anyway, is what they're saying. But you know what? As an offensive lineman, you've got to be crazy to not look at the University of Florida and what they've done the last several seasons and the direction they're heading under Coach Will Muschamp. I mean, one would be crazy to want to be almost anywhere else.
Also, always, this is kind of where we see the tactics of recruiting, because Wynn went on an unofficial visit to Alabama this weekend.
Right.
Nick Saban did not offer, so it was sort of the perfect time for Muschamp and his staff to swoop in. And I think these sort of subtleties in the recruiting game are where you really identify who the best coaching staffs are in America when it comes to recruiting, because they pick up on these small little things. Okay, we've got a window there. Let's go and talk to this kid.
Well, and I think that you'll find Will Muschamp differs than most coaches when it comes to recruiting, because he doesn't look at, the top 100 list. He likes who he likes. And most of the time, if Nick Saban didn't offer, another coach wouldn't offer either. It's usually these recruits want to steal them from programs that are already interested. So little nuances in recruiting are definitely fun to watch.
Back to Orlando and Jones defensive back, C.J. Jennings. He's a guy that's still looking for an offer, a part of the Orlando Sentinels Super 60 in the area. And he just won the defensive back MVP and fastest man at one of these underclassmen combines. I think the importance of these is absolutely huge. When you start to get that kind of exposure performing well in these combines, sometimes it makes it easier for you to be noticed and for coaching staffs to come calling. And so the expectation now is that Jennings will get several calls, possibly into next week, and get some offers because of his performance at one of these combines.
Combines are the wave of the future. Coaches see the 40 times, the vertical jumps, the shuttles, and they say, I can coach him if he's got all the tools. And that's why these combines have become so important to these high school kids.
Well, that's our show for this week on Friday Night Lights Central Florida. And we'll keep it going. A lot to get to next week. Softball will be in regional play. We will preview the playoff race for baseball teams across the area as well, with so many teams that are going to be vying to go to Fort Myers.
There is a lot of teams from the Central Florida area, so maybe we're going to have to spread it to 2 segments because there might be a lot to talk about.
I think there will be. For Allie Peak, I'm Carson Engel, and this has been Friday Night Lights Central Florida.